Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. I just thought the sun's shining. I'd share a few thoughts, a few happy thoughts on some conversations that I've had this week with clients and prospects. Just on the positive, some perhaps somewhat unexpected, but the positive impact that taking control of their numbers have had on them. Um, You may not always draw a direct correlation between spreadsheets and stress reduction. In fact, I can imagine for many people that the thought of additional spreadsheets in their lives actually brings on stress. But you'd be surprised. During a couple of different conversations this week, stories have been shared about how businesses and leaders in particular who've taken small steps to just get a bit of a better handle on their financial situation and their infrastructure and reports have had this unexpected payback in terms of significantly reduced stress levels, in turn, better experiences during management meetings, better decision making, and as a result, more profitable, better growth, thriving businesses. It's been interesting to hear about how just taking that step back and a more controlled approach by a particular business leader had had such an unexpected benefit. They thought they were in control of their short-term cash flow. They had an enormous spreadsheet, very detailed, very granular. It took ages for them to update, but actually all that sheet was doing was adding to their stress of the situation, the pressure to keep it up to date, to make sure that all of the formulas were working, that everything was adding up. It was very granular, lots of very detailed level information that actually wasn't material to the performance from a cash perspective of that business week to week. And so they were spending a lot of time and effort on this artifact, but actually with a bit of guidance and stepping away and simplifying what they were doing into a much lighter touch approach. Admittedly, with a lot more experienced spreadsheeting and modeling technique, um, just that simple change enabled that business leader to save a huge amount of the time that they were putting in with their bookkeeper updating their cash information. They felt that they were getting, well, not that they felt, they were getting more accurate information, far fewer inputs as a result. And it wasn't actually that the cash position or the performance of the business at that point changed at all, but it was just the stress impact of that one small area of their weekly tasks and the effect it was having on them. So it was great feedback to have received that particular development had had such a knock-on effect over the subsequent weeks and months in terms of how they were then able to focus on other much more business critical things, because they didn't fundamentally have a cash flow problem. It was just the process that they had set up was giving them significant stress, and they were able to focus much more on some of their negotiating new commercial deals. I believe won a multi-month contract with a new client, which is a fantastic result for them. And obviously, reducing their stress levels has had a knock-on impact to their personal well-being. And then another example came up, admittedly not a client of ours, but a business that had existing shareholders and was taking on some new capital, had set itself up as a result to need to report a number of different KPIs to the lenders, but without a very controlled structure to do so. it was almost as if taking on this growth had become an extremely painful and stress-inducing part of growing the business. And it really didn't need to be that way. And so once changes were made to improve the financial infrastructure of how that business was operating, just a little bit more of an experienced voice guiding that business leader to make changes, actually the stress from the process itself was alleviated. The external stress factor of all of these other stakeholders, the other shareholders involved, and now this new external party, the stress that was being placed on the business leadership team and owner was reduced from that direction as well. And so it's been really interesting to have a couple of conversations in a very short space of time about how just some basic improvements to financial infrastructure can have these really emotive impacts on how somebody, in particular the business leaders, felt about coming to work and delivering for their business. If you feel that you have contacts in your network who are that stressed person, the always updating spreadsheets on cash flow until the early hours of the morning on a Sunday night because it's the only time they can find to do it, please do reach out. I'm sure that we can share some guidance, get in touch, happy to help. If that's yourself, then definitely please do reach out. It's just one of the basic foundations of finances that we address as part of our model of working with businesses. You have to have those base foundations of the week to week numbers, month to month numbers operating smoothly so that you can then elevate things, take things to the next level, start inspecting some of the performance numbers of the business further, and really bringing performance improvement to the forefront of the conversation instead of stress-inducing weekly cash reports. Anyway, just really interesting to have had a couple of instances come up there this week, so I thought I would share. I, for one, am looking forward to Sunday, or I'm hoping that the weather stays as clear as it is for Sunday. As you can see, little telescope over my shoulder. So we're going to try and take a look at the lunar eclipse that we're expecting on Sunday evening. Fingers crossed it stays clear. Hope you've had a good week. Feel free to get in touch, message with any questions on any of that. And I hope you have a great weekend. Thanks very much.